Last time going down the 3 flights of stairs.
You should not have, but like...
Look, this feels illegal. Look, that's our road. You get to see where we live. Look, there's our house. That's it. This is the sidewalk I used to walk on whenever we would walk to work. That's my sidewalk.
You should walk on this side.
Okay, sorry. That's the sidewalk that I would walk on over there. This is our fun intersection. Can you pull up so we can see the abandoned house? This house has been sitting abandoned like that for at least as long as Zach has been in Atlanta, which is 6 years now. Since I will no longer be living in this apartment by the time that this video comes up, we can show you literally everything about where we have lived for the past 3 years.
This YouTuber's wife or girlfriend died of eating
No, I didn't see that. There's our abandoned house. And then this is the hill that whenever I would be running and I'd be like, no matter which way I start, I have to go up a crazy hill. I would be going up this thing. Or the one on the other side that's just, oh my gosh, U-Haul in the, what? But that's the beginning of our apartments over there. That's far away from where we lived, but they're still part of us too. And then, look, we're still going down this hill. Whee! Whoa. Whee! Back through there's our gym and the pool. Got some townhomes. That's obviously not what we were in. Obviously. But pretty soon, dun 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 dun. Look, there's my apartment building. One last time getting mail. Nope. There it is. That's my mail key. That's embarrassing. Before we go inside, I want to show you the outside. I mentioned this in a different video recently, but we've actually just moved across the hall last year when we were moving. So we've lived in this building for 3 years. I just didn't talk about the fact that we were literally just moving across the hall. I'm like sneaking around the side right now. But this is the little green space that used to be outside of my window. I was in grad school whenever they cut down that tree, which is a lot, quite loud. And then that is the window to our old living room. That's the window to my old bedroom before we moved. But then now that we've moved, those two, that's our living room and that's the study right there. So let's go inside. These are the stairs that I tripped down my first semester of grad school and like fully twisted my ankle to where I couldn't walk, but it literally was just this little set of stairs, like the 3 sets of stairs. So that was kind of embarrassing. Building 8. That's where we just were looking at the windows. So that is where I lived for 2 years. And then when we moved, we're now just right here. 8:34. Oh, I got a squatter already. So as you may have noticed, that was the 3rd floor with no elevator this entire time for the past 3 years. Every day, up 3 flights of stairs I thought it was funny one time because someone commented and asked if it's just really common in Atlanta to have spiral staircases, since our last apartment had one and then our current apartment had one. And I think I answered and I was like, it's not like super common, but you can find them around, as if like the reason that we didn't have it back to back is because we literally just moved across the hall within the same apartment complex. But so this is actual view from our window. I loved how many trees it has. That was so fun. And then one time over there, you can't see it very well, it was outside the office window. There was a minor motor vehicle accident to where nobody was hurt, but it was kind of fun to watch like that, like people interact afterwards, not the crash that was fun to watch. This is probably my last time going up our spiral staircase. Oh, and it's hot. Oh, wow. That's like a 30-degree difference, I think.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
But so then you can see, because the trees are so big in this entire neighborhood, that was our view from up top. During the winter, the Bank of America building is like right there. You just can't see it now because the leaves are on the trees. But that was cool because since our bed was over here, that was our view out. That window was the Bank of America building, which is a classic. It felt very Atlanta. I feel like it's wild seeing the apartment empty like this, because like this is what it looked like whenever we had our little Chipotle dinner the first night that we got the keys last summer to here. And now it's all empty again. This is the area that I like sat and talked to you, probably ending up being like hours over the year that we lived here. But nothing more, no more. What was exciting when we moved in here from the one across the hall is that this one had been renovated right before we moved into it. So that's why it has the different floors and like, I think different walls and different cabinets than where we moved from. So it did feel like an upgrade. Last time going down the 3 flights of stairs. I showed them the stairs that I twisted my ankle off of a few years ago. Goodbye. My favorite dog in the world used to live in that one. He was like 138 pounds, XL bully, I think, and his name was Balls. But look, these are all our trees. Got the whole community. This is the other way out. Somewhere over here they apparently used for filming, what was it? The Saint TV series, I think? Like 2 days ago, like very recently they just did that. I thought about putting like in the thumbnail or title, and I still might, but like doxing myself so you don't have to. But I mean, I'm always curious whenever people like, I don't know, whenever I see YouTubers like in their spaces and moving out, like obviously you don't want to know like where people live when they're there for safety reasons, but like now that I'm gone, like I can talk so freely about the apartment complex that we lived in for 3 years. Zach and I were discussing yesterday of like, if we were to do a Google review, what stars it would be, because like, it's so hard. I feel like it's between 2 and 3 stars. My justification for 3 is like, we were able to successfully live there. We didn't have like any damage to our things. Like we didn't have many like critters or like mold or just stuff that like would be an actual like unpleasant living experience. Honestly, the unpleasantness part of it just comes from the leasing office and from the leasing agents, which, you know, you get some good ones, you get some bad ones. But we lived at Rock Springs Villages Apartments, that's what they were called. Right when we were moving in 2021, they had like just undergone a management change. And so things were just like a little wild. And I feel like in the beginning we were like, okay, like things are just not working out because they're still adjusting from their management change. But then 3 years later, things are still just kind of wild. But right when we were moving in, like how we chose to move in there, Zach had a friend who lived there like through college, and we really liked it. And so Zach and our roommate Jason toured like before we moved in 2021, and like we knew the floor plan that we wanted. We had the unit that was going to be available, and we fully like signed the lease for that unit. And then it was about like 2 weeks before we were moving in when we got a call from the leasing office that was like, actually the people who are living in your unit have decided to re-sign. And so they're like, well, we have a different unit that's the same floor plan, but it's not available until I think it was like 10 days later than our original one was. And Zach's apartment that he was in, the lease was going to be up by then. And so we're just like right in the beginning, they kind of made us homeless from a lease that we signed by pushing back our move-in to where like we did not have a place to live. We had to stay with a friend and like pack up all of our things and move all of our things into her apartment, which was so gracious of her. But also it's just like, we've had a lease signed for like months with this move-in date, and it got pushed back like very last minute. But so anyways, we move in. I feel like some of the funny things just like along the way, honestly a lot of the funny things were once we moved into, like once we switched apartments and moved across the hall last summer. Starting with, it was the hardest thing to get our deposit back from the first apartment that we lived in there. The absolute hardest thing. Like it took months of like going back and forth with the leasing office in order to get our deposit check, because the way that they kept addressing the check made it uncashable. Like we couldn't take it to a bank and cash it. And so that was frustrating. There have been various things like they forgot to make themselves a copy of our key whenever we moved into this apartment. So anytime we've had maintenance or anything, they'd be like, we can't get in here unless you're home. And at one point they were like, can you please drop your key off at the office so that we can make a copy of it? And so we did that, and then they gave us back our key and gave us the copy that they had made of the key. So then we ran into the same thing again, where it's like maintenance was responsive, but they couldn't get into our apartment because they weren't keeping keys to get into our apartment. And so it's like, I can't just like leave the door unlocked all of the time whenever we're not home for hours on end. But also like, you should have like a master key or something, I feel like, to get in. I would feel like. It's just like been goofy things like that along the way, where like, it's not really a bad experience. Like obviously we're just still living in the apartment. It wasn't like so super negative, but it was just like so many little things that it was like, how is this working this way? Like who is communicating with who, and like why do things keep happening like this? Even down to whenever we were giving our keys back, it was yesterday at this point, whenever we were giving our keys back yesterday, it's the end of our lease. Like our lease ended on July 19th. That was our last day in the apartment, and we got like the full move out letter giving move out instructions. The move out instructions were like, during business hours when the leasing office is open on the last day of your lease, just turn in your keys, and that's all you need to do. So I was like, okay, sounds good. Last Tuesday, like 3 days before we were done and out of our apartment, I got a call while I was at work, and the guy was like, hey, just want to let you know we're going to do a pre-move out walkthrough. And I was like, okay, sounds good. I was like, there's still some stuff, because there was at that point, in the apartment, but like everything's in good condition, so like you're welcome to walk through it and see that. And he was like, okay, sounds good. So I like, in my head, I was like, I don't know how he's going to do that, because they still don't have keys to our apartment, because every time that they've made copies of keys, they've given us the replacement key. But he never called back, so I was like, so maybe they did it. I don't know. And also, like, whenever we moved out of our other apartment, they never did a walkthrough with us. They only did a walkthrough after we were gone, so I wasn't sure, but I didn't, like, think twice about it necessarily. And then yesterday, Friday, the last day of our lease, whenever we just have to, during business hours, give our keys, I got a call at work bright and early in the morning being like, hey, when are you gonna come to do your pre-move out walkthrough? But I was like, oh, I didn't know we were doing that today. I thought like I did it on Tuesday, but I was like, I'm at work right now. After work is when we were planning on coming by, so I can be there at 4:45. And he was like, okay, sounds good. Like, we'll see you at 4:45 and we'll do your pre-move out walkthrough. And then he was like, do you still have things in the apartment? And I was like, no, the apartment's like empty. It's ready to go. We've moved our stuff out. And he was like, okay, sounds good. See you at 4:45. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I get a call back like an hour later that I missed because I was at work. I was working. And he left a voicemail, same guy, and he was like, actually, since you've already moved out, you need to email us a notice of having vacated letter, and we don't need to do a pre-move out walkthrough because you've already moved out, and so just email us saying that you vacated the apartment, and then you're fine, you're good to go. So I got that voicemail, and I was like, that seems weird, but like, we'll just still go at 4:45 to drop off our keys. And then I got another call from him a few hours later, and he was like, hey, why haven't you emailed the like notice of having vacated letter? And I was like, why would I need to send that whenever like we sent our notice of vacancy like back in May, like with the 60-day requirement or whatever. We've already sent that. We're vacating like at the end of our lease, which is today. And he was like, well, since you've already moved out but you never turned in your keys, then we have to have like written notice that you're vacating because you never turned in your keys. And I was like, no, we're coming at 4:45 today, like we discussed, to turn in our keys. And he was like, well, we haven't received your keys yet, and you said that you already moved out, and so we need like the notice of having vacated letter. And I was like, in my head, I was like, am I the one that's confused? Like, what's going on? Because based on the conversations we had, I was like, we will be turning in our keys at 4:45 today, because today is today. That is the last day of our lease, and so we're doing that. And he was like, oh, okay, and then hung up. And so then we go to the leasing office at, it was like a little early. It was like 4:37 or so is whenever we actually arrived, just to turn in our keys. Like, that was it. We just gotta move out. And the leasing office was empty. We could like hear somebody in the back talking, but all 4 desks of all the little leasing agents were empty. We like walked in, Zach like kind of slammed the door behind him so people could like hear that we'd arrived. There was no one. We had to wait for like 10-15 minutes while this guy's like in the back telling people's business on the phone. He's like, oh, did you see Miss Sue in this unit? Like, she's only ever given us 1 check, and she said that she's given us more than that many checks, but really we've only gotten 1 check from Miss Sue, so she's gonna have to start paying. Like, that's the phone call that's going on in the back. And we were like, I don't feel like I should be able to be hearing this right now. And Zach and I were like talking, we were laughing, I was like coughing, like trying to be like, we're here, stop telling your confidential information, until it was like 10 minutes later when someone walked through and she's like, oh, have you been helped yet? And we were like, no, not yet. And she was like, oh, how long have you been here? And we were like, it's been a while. She goes, oh, I thought we have a new guy over there, I thought he was out here. And we're like, yeah, no, I don't think he's out here. And then the actual giving back of the key process was just a lot too. It was a lot. And we gave him our forwarding address, and she was like, you'll receive the results of your walkthrough after they do it. So they definitely did not do it, because they probably realized in themselves that they still never kept the key that they were making for themselves to our apartment. And they'll email you that, and then once your deposit check is ready, then we'll send that to your forwarding address. And Zach and I were like, okay, thank you. And then just like fled the scene. And that's where, I mean, we're like, it's not that the apartments were bad. The apartments felt fine for the most part. Like, there were a couple here and there little issues, but most of them were definitely live-withable. But it just was things like that where I was like, this should not be, like, why did I get 3 phone calls during the day being like, you've already vacated, you moved out without giving us back your keys, whenever it was the same person I was talking to each time. Like, it wasn't like, oh, miscommunication in the office. It was the same person I was talking to. But it should have been a sign, I feel like, whenever we tried to move in and they were like, just kidding, you actually don't get to move in till 10 days from now. Like, that probably should have been the first sign. It's fine. Like, overall, fine place to live. It definitely feels now overpriced for what you actually get with it, but that is why we moved, and that is why we're not there anymore. And I am a little bummed about it, just because like the entire time that I have lived in Atlanta, like, that's been my home base. That's been where I am. And now we're different a little bit, so I'm gonna have to like get used to it taking longer to drive places or shorter to drive places, or like, you know, what's close to us now. And like, it's a good change, but it definitely is a change. Especially since, like I said, you didn't really know the fact necessarily that I stayed in the same building. Not that it affects you that much, but just, that's where I lived for 3 years. And I never lived anywhere that long other than my childhood home, so kind of cool. I hope you enjoyed this moving series. This is the last one that I'm going to call like moving vlog with a number. I think this is moving vlog 5. Obviously, we're still settling in here, so like there still will be settling in. Like, I'm sure we'll be buying new stuff and continuing to organize, and definitely have to unpack. Like, that's definitely coming up too. But I feel like 5 is a good amount of the like series, and the rest of the stuff will just be integrated within normal vlogs. So I really hope you enjoyed our little moving vlog series. I think it was really fun, and I'm hoping to not have to do it like again soon at all, ever. I will die in this apartment. No, it actually, like, it wasn't as bad of a moving process as I thought it was. Big attribution to like using movers and having so much overlap between the apartments. I think like it wasn't so fun, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been for sure. But make sure to subscribe before you go. If you liked these videos, make sure to like them, because that's how I like know what you enjoy, so that I can do more of what you enjoy. And I hope you've had such a great day, and thank you for letting me be a part of it in these little minutes. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.